This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. Hello and welcome to episode 223 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Now today's topic is single parent travel, but before you think, oh, I'm not a single parent or a parent, so I'm not going to listen, just stop for a sec because I think it's more relatable than you might think. The first two stories I've got today actually pretty much fall into the when things go wrong category, which I know is often a very popular topic. So stick around because I'm pretty sure you will enjoy this episode. Now, obviously, I also travel as a single parent. There are definitely pros and cons. One of the big pros is I get to make all the decisions. Well, when my son was little, I got to make all the decisions. Definitely now he's nearly 11 and he really does like to make a lot of decisions or have a lot of input, but I'm still the adult, so I still do have the final say. Also, it's my money that is paying for whatever trip we're doing most of the time. If it's certainly not his, put it that way. And that's a con as a single parent traveller. Sometimes budget is more of an issue, so that can be a bit of a stumbling block. But although making the decisions is great, the flip side of that too is that if things go wrong, it's all up to you to sort things out. There's no one else there. And the other thing, and if I think of things going wrong, sometimes as a single parent of a kid of the opposite gender can be a bit tricky. For example, so even up to our last trips abroad, a year or so ago now, so my son was 9, nearly 10 at the time. Even up until then, my son would still come in often to the women's toilets with me, for example, when we were traveling, because I couldn't imagine in a foreign country sending him somewhere, alone. And that turned out to be a lucky thing. One time, it's probably 3 or 4 years ago now, I suppose, but I remember he got the cubicle door lock jammed once. It was in Singapore airport. And luckily I was inside, not in the cubicle with him, but near enough that he could say, "Mama, help!" And I tried to coach him through trying to unjam it, and eventually had to go and find help so they could unscrew it from the outside. And if I had been waiting further outside, I would have been so stressed, wondering, oh my goodness, where's my son? What's happened to him? So, that can be tricky too. But on the whole, I absolutely love traveling with him. He's a great travel companion. We make so many great memories. We're always talking about things we've done, and it's just it's a special thing to be traveling, I think, as a single parent. But let's go on to the couple of stories where sometimes things go wrong. My first guest today is Cindy Siano, and she tells me a story about traveling with her son. And there's a few feelings here that I can relate to very strongly.
This is when my Mr. 24 was Mr. 8.
Oh.
And yeah.
Back in the day.
Yes, exactly. I thought you could relate. Yeah, so anyway, I was a single mom at that point and decided I would take my son to the Netherlands, which has a lot more snow than we have here in Perth.
Well, that's not hard.
Yeah, exactly. And but the Netherlands is pretty flat, as you know, and it's a bit more hilly in the south in Limburg, but they have the Northern Hemisphere's largest indoor ski slopes. And so it's like being inside a giant refrigerator. And they have these various slopes, and for all intents and purposes, if you don't look up at the sky, you actually do feel like you're in Austria.
Wow.
And we're on a budget. I didn't have money to, spend on lessons. And I thought, we'll just kind of, teach ourselves. It will be fine. So we had all the gear and everything. And we started on the 5-degree slope, which is real kindergarten. And Jesse is, of course, a natural at 8. And,
yes.
It's like he was born on a snowboard and then on skis that he then graduated to later in the day. So I thought, oh, he's fine. I'm having trouble getting both feet on the snowboard, but never mind. And I have great respect for falling over. And,
Yes.
but children, fall over. We, do it all the time. No big deal. Anyway, we thought, okay, we've done this enough. He's starting to get bored. So, right, let's go on a proper slope.
Oh,
so,
dear.
there's a ski lift that takes you to the top of the hill, and then you ski down. He was on skis at this stage. And we get to the ski lift, and at the last minute, I freak out and I chicken. And I said, I can't do it. I just can't do it. And he's, Jesse was like, I'm doing it. And he's on the ski lift, and he goes up. As soon as he takes off, I break out in sweat as a mother. I'm going, oh my God, what have I done? He's doing this all by himself. Oh my God, what have I done? Oh, and I'm just, I'm hot. It's 5 below zero, and I'm hot with the nerves. And I'm standing at the bottom of the slope scanning and just like scouring each of the 8-year-old looking kids with an open red jacket fluttering in the breeze to see, where is my child? And he's not coming down. He's not coming down. And I'm like, oh, do I go up and try and find it? Where is he? Finally, I get a tap on the shoulder, and it's him.
Oh,
and
no.
Like, oh my God, he comes from, left field. Where did he be? What happened? And he goes, well, I got to the top of the hill, and there was a bit of a queue of people coming down. I thought, well, there's no one over to the left.
Oh, no.
I'll go that way, which, of course, is the advanced slope.
Oh, no.
This is an 8-year-old child that hasn't had one lesson, and he takes the advanced slope. There's no one else on that slope, and he thinks, oh, this is brilliant. And, of course, he has no idea how to control skis. He doesn't know how to slow down, doesn't know how to stop, doesn't know how to turn, nothing. So he just heads down this slope like a bee, like it's just like, down this slope. And he doesn't know what to do, so he just hangs on for dear life. And he's just leaning in, and, with his little ski sticks under his arms, tucked in, going straight down this slope.
Gosh.
And he actually hit a little bump and became airborne at one stage, landed, kept going. And once he got to the bottom, it evens out, but he didn't slow down, of course. And he thought, well, I'll just ram into this Perspex window.
Oh, God.
And just went blam into the window, picks himself up, wipes the snow off him, and thought, yeah, that was great. Let's do it again.
Oh, you poor mother.
He starts to get up onto the ski lift, and one of the attendants stops him and says, no.
That's not how it works, buddy.
Yeah. And, of course, he starts speaking Dutch, and Jesse said, I can't understand you. And he goes, oh, no problem. So he starts to speaking English and says, look, you have to have lessons. And he was so disappointed. So I was like, oh, okay. But I was so glad to see him, because my whole life flashed before my eyes, completely invalidated any qualification I had to be a mother.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my God.
Oh, so much empathy for that story. I haven't had that exact experience, but I have had those moments, especially when you are abroad as a single parent of a single child, just wondering, what have you done wrong this time, because they're not there or they're not where they should be. Funnily enough, if COVID hadn't come along right now, we probably would have been tackling this whole learning to ski issue in probably in southern Germany or in Switzerland somewhere. And I definitely had thought, I'll just let my son loose. No, I probably would have given him lessons if I could have afforded it. Maybe I would have ended up in just the same situation that Cindy was. So who knows? But we'll have to wait and see now when we get another chance to actually get to the snow for the first time for my son. So anyway, all's well that ends well with Cindy and her son. And a postscript to that, I know that I think must have been the year before last, he had ended up in Canada and qualified as a snowboard instructor. So it turns out that that first experience it gave him an appetite for more. So all good. Now, my next guest today is Jennifer Johnston. And she explains a trip she took with two of her three sons to Japan.
We'd arrived in Tokyo the day before and had one quick night in Tokyo and a quick look around in the morning, and then we planned to get the Shinkansen from Tokyo to Iyama because we were heading to Nozawa Onsen, which is up north, 4 hours from Tokyo. Well, I think it's a 4-hour drive, but it was a 90-minute Shinkansen. So anyway, so we've got our little bento boxes and we're on the Shinkansen and we're all set up and the boys are all comfortable. I'm sure you can picture this, Amanda.
I can. I'm wishing I was there.
Yeah, so it was lots of fun. And this, was my first experience in Japan. The older boy had been on a couple of school excursions.
Right.
So off we went, and I'm not used to the fact that they're so fast. And, you look up and you can see your stop is coming, and all of a sudden it said Iyama. And we're like, oh, my God, okay. So, and they don't
stop for long.
No, so we jumped up and we grabbed all our bits and pieces and went out to the station, and, we had a rolly suitcase each and a bag, a backpack each. And I'm standing there, and then the younger one turns to me and says, I think I've left my mobile phone on the train. And I went, oh,
no.
Okay. And then the older one went, oh, and he's like checking his pockets. I think I've left it on too. And I'm just looking at them going, you are kidding me. So I said, be quick. So they got back on, grabbed their devices. I'm standing on, the platform. Anyway, I'm looking at them, and the younger one got to the door and the door just slid shut.
Oh.
And then the Shinkansen took off, like, as they do, that beautiful swish sound.
Yes.
And I'm just standing on the platform going, oh, my God, like, what do I do? Like, this can't be happening. So, we didn't have mobile phone. We had mobile phones, obviously, because that's, coverage.
Yeah, that caused a problem, but yes, no data.
Yeah. So there I am. I'm thinking, oh, my gosh, what do I do now? So I shuffled all the bags, and as you can imagine, it took like three turns
luggage,
to get to the lift. And then I went down, and then I found a lovely conductor and very, very, very limited English and my hardly any Japanese. But, like I pointed to the luggage and I kind of said, two boys, kept going, and look, through sign language and everything, he understood. So I grabbed the passports because I had their passports, showed them the photos.
Handy.
And they got on to the walkie-talkie and then must have somehow contacted the train driver because you know how efficient everything is in Japan.
Of course.
Came back to me and he said, James and Fraser, and I went, yes. And through, that translation, minimal understanding, he said, they will catch the next train back. And I'm like, yes, great. But not all trains back stop at Iyama station.
Oh, no. Oh.
It was 90 minutes that I had to wait.
Oh, you poor thing.
Yeah. So I just stood and, because it was January and it was really cold, but they had this lovely little room set up. So I just plopped all the luggage and I just sat there. And I think I put posts up on Facebook to say, you wouldn't believe what has just happened to me. And I've got all these friends going, no. But anyway, so they eventually returned. That was just like the funniest and biggest learning experience for us because any trip from then on, it's like, right, we're about to arrive. Have you packed everything? Have you put everything away? Pockets, check. So,
oh, no. While they were on their little adventure, were your boys stressed or worried about it, or did they think, oh, we're together and we'll figure it out, or?
You know what, that was my relief, was the two of them were together. And when they pulled up, they got out, and I'm like, oh, a little bit aggro. And they're like, oh, Mum, it was amazing. It started snowing. We played, in the snow. We threw snowballs at each other.
Oh, you can't be mad then, can you?
They're making the most out of the opportunity.
Which is what you always want kids to do, so Oh,
yes.
no. Whereas you've been stuck sitting around waiting, hoping they're going to show up again. Oh, my goodness
But
me.
anyway, look, it all worked out well. Japanese efficiency, I knew they were safe.
I was going to
They
say,
were
of
on their
all the
way
countries
back.
for that to happen in, you would rather it happened in Japan than nearly anywhere else. Again, all's well that ends well, and Jen's boys turned up as you would hope and expect in Japan. I don't imagine I would remain very calm as a parent in that situation. Although it does remind me of a story way back from episode 11, way back from a few years ago, of when my friend Di and I got separated on a train in Bangkok. So if you want to find out what happened to us, go back to episode 11. It's the first story on there. Obviously, everything worked out there as well. So anyway, that is one of those particularly extra tricky moments. As a single parent, you can't be everywhere. So well done, Jen. The boys came back. Everything was okay. Now, my final guest today is Rita Melara, who is a listener from Queensland. And the best news is that nothing went wrong. And Rita took a really special trip with her teenage daughter a couple of years ago and offered to tell me about it. And it's amazing and just delightful.
2.5 years ago, we decided to take a 3-month trip, only because the stars aligned and I had long service leave, and my mum had passed away, so I had no obligations here in my hometown, and Isabella's school was happy for her to have a whole term off, so we decided to go the whole hog and take the whole term. I also work at a school, so that worked in well because we took the, from holiday to holiday period off, and we decided we spent 11 days in London, 11 days in Paris, 40 days in Italy, which is the home country of my parents,
Right.
and then a couple of days in Athens, and then a week on a Greek island of Tinos. And
Wow.
then we flew to Morocco and did a 2-week tour of Morocco, a couple of days in Madrid and home. So that was during the summer. We left in July and we're back by the end of October, I think it works, September. And so, we spent the summer in Europe, I guess, which was really, really wonderful.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So at the time your daughter was 14, right?
So my daughter was 14, yes, and in grade 9. So the school were very happy for her to have that time off and actually supported it quite well because thought that she could probably learn a lot more in 3 months than she would in a classroom. So, and we, at the time, being a single parent, I guess I worried a great deal prior to that, whether that was the right decision financially to make, whether, travelling alone and thinking of all the precautions we had to take if something went wrong, and all those things that came into play when you are travelling just on your own with a younger child. So all of those things. But, I think just we're brave enough, I think, to just get through all that and just make the decision to go, which has ended up being the most fabulous and fantastic thing we've done in our lives. So it's been great.
Yeah, it gives me chills to think of it. It's such a great experience because 3 months is a really long time. And there's a few things that I immediately think of, especially with a teenager. I mean, my son, we were just saying beforehand, he's 10 and he still loves me above all. But a teenager has really close connections with their friends. So 3 months away from other teenagers. Was she okay with that?
As a 14-year-old, I think, yes, she was, because we have a particularly close relationship. So,
right.
I think it was fine. I know that maybe a year or so later, I did remark to her and said, oh, gosh, I don't think we could ever have done this trip now, So I think that year made a big difference. I certainly couldn't do it now as a, almost 17-year-old. I think there's no way that I could do it now. But at that age, at 14, I think it was still, I think we were still in that stage where she was happy to hang around mum and do whatever I, said, this is what we're doing today. And, so it ended up being probably the right time, I'd say.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, yeah. And I want to go back to that, I often feel that anxiety when I'm travelling with my son because I feel so responsible. Of course, I always feel responsible for him because, I'm his mother. But especially when I take him abroad to all sorts of different places, and I sometimes think, we're just staying somewhere, just the two of us. What if something happened to me? What would he do, Things like that. So how did you cope with that kind of, that feeling of responsibility of being the only adult on the trip and all of that?
I know I over-prepared. I'm a bit of a wombat in terms of having everything in its place. And so for me, it was really important that wherever we stayed, she felt safe. I didn't want her to feel sort of like too uncomfortable. That was one thing. So we had everything planned more or less accommodation-wise.
Right.
And I also went to a point where she had her own phone at that stage, and I had put lots of information about all the consular agents in all the places we were. I had a list. I had them on a USB that was somewhere in her purse and all this stuff, so that if everything went wrong, all of our travel plans were on a USB in her purse if we were separated. Or
right.
So all of that stuff, I kind of made sure that we had all those bases covered, so that if she had all those emergency numbers in the different places where we were the different countries we were visiting. We also had relations in Italy, which made it, I made sure she knew how to contact them if something went wrong. Or I think those were the things. I just made sure that those things were accessible to her, so that if something did go wrong and I didn't come back from, getting a croissant up the road in the morning or something like that, she knew, what she could do, I guess. So
yes. Oh, that sounds very
that was
sensible.
that was one of my biggest worries when we set off. What if I got hit by a bus? What if, something happened? Or, so I think you can only be as prepared and make them understand so they know what they can do, so they're not, paralysed if something does happen, where they just don't know where to go or what to do. So
now I'm also curious about how in planning or choosing where you were going, who had the most say? Did you guys plan this out together? And, were there places that one of you didn't really want to go, but you did for the other, or how did that all work?
Definitely. We toyed around the idea of, Isabella's father is actually Mexican and still lives in the south of Mexico. So we toyed with the idea of, I guess the original plan was that we wanted to go via Mexico first and then on to Europe. Morocco was always on that was top of my list, not hers, but top of my list. And then she decided that she didn't want to do that at that stage, of her life. She didn't want to go to Mexico. So our plans sort of changed. We knew we always wanted to go to Italy because that's where my mum and dad are from, and so we've grown up in an Italian household, so we really wanted to sort of touch base with family again, and so we knew that was on our list. Paris was definitely on my list, so Paris and Morocco were top of my list. Greece was her. So really she wanted to go to Greece. She's into Greek mythology and all these things, so that was on her list. And I guess London was that we happened to get tickets one Anzac Day to Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, so we managed to get tickets and we ended up going to London.
Now we have to go to London.
Planning. Yeah. And it was we loved it. We loved London. So
wonderful.
So that's probably how we did do a little bit of, I had a couple of things that I really wanted to do. She was a bit apprehensive about Morocco, as you would be, because it's, a bit of a different place. But we did a tour there, which made it, I think for her, it was much more,
felt more comfortable to do that.
It was easy. Yeah, it felt
makes
comfortable
sense
for her to do it in Morocco rather than just us travelling alone.
Yeah.
So that was a conscious decision and also picking a tour which was, reasonable sort of accommodation, so that she didn't, we weren't staying in sort of backpackers and things like that where you may feel a little uncomfortable. So sort of things that you sort of factor in, I guess. So
good. So both of you got to do most of the things you really wanted to do. So.
Definitely,
good compromises.
Yes, definitely. We like I say, it was probably a year or two in the planning, so a lot of the planning then was up to me.
Right.
Like run past, I'd say, what about this and where about, why don't we do this? Or she'd say, that's fine, or yes or no, but I got so much joy out of just the planning stage. I think I'm a bit of a planner anyway, so I just loved having, time to go through all these Airbnbs and, decide where we might stay and what we might do. So, it was, certainly probably the planning stage was more me, but definitely she had, input along the way.
And had you travelled much with her before that? Like, was she, a well-travelled, prepared, knew what to expect, or how did that kind of go?
Well, we've travelled probably in Australia more than we hadn't travelled overseas before together.
Right.
I had travelled overseas before before she was born, and lived in the States for a little while as well. So kind of I was fairly courageous, or I kind of knew what travelling overseas was like, so that for me I felt quite brave in terms of that. she's, I guess we've always been fairly open to the world, and that's how I've kind of raised her, to be sort of, to have ideas of the world other than just her little town, which is a, very small little country town here. So I think she was always open to it. So I think she just took like a duck to water, really. Just
great.
All those new experiences, she just soaks them up and just loves them and takes them and watches and, processes, and it's just wonderful. That was, it's, like I said, it's been the most amazing thing for us both. And when we look back, we just can't, it seems like a dream. It seems surreal that we actually did it, and that it all went so well, and that, what we saw in those 3 months was just, mind-blowing. So
it sounds amazing.
Stay with her. Yeah, stay with her and certainly with me for all our lives, I imagine.
Rita and I went on to discuss how very glad they were that they took that opportunity while they could. Especially as kids grow up, you can lose these opportunities. And obviously this past year or so has shown us that we really need to take those chances, because you never know when travel might come to a halt, at least for a while. So I love that story as a very special single mum and daughter, beautiful experience to have. So I really enjoyed that. And thank you so much, Rita, for offering to tell your story as well. Okay, so that's it for episode 223 of the Thoughtful Travel podcast. I hope you've enjoyed the stories from my great guests, so a big thank you to them. I started off chatting with Cindy Siano. She runs Life and Times Video, and you can find her at lifeandtimesvideo.com.au. Then I chatted with Jennifer Johnston, and Jen is a freelance travel writer but also runs a blog called Travel Bug Within, and you can find that at travelbugwithin.com.au. I'm also going to leave a link in the show notes to the episode I mentioned about when Di and I got lost or got separated from each other on the train, as happened with Jen and her boys. So that's at notaballerina.com/11. And again, a huge thanks to Rita Malara from the Thoughtful Travellers Facebook group for telling her story as a listener. That was fabulous. And if you want to be in the Thoughtful Travellers group, come along and join us. Just search for Thoughtful Travellers in Facebook, or there's a link in the show notes as well. The show notes for this episode are at notaballerina.com/223. That's it for this episode. As always, thank you so much for listening. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.